What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and this video I want to discuss some of the Assassin's Creed talk online. It has been insane. Honestly, it's been kind of exhausting. Even just to, I don't want to sound like this out of touch, individual, but, just from watching it all kind of unfold, right? It is exhausting. It's something that, you almost just kind of feel done with at a certain point. And Assassin's Creed Shadows, man, leading into release, like I knew something like this was going to happen, right? It just feels like anything that can be discussed and any kind of like pushing people beyond their limits has kind of happened like right around right now, right? You have people complaining about everything under the sun. Some things, by the way, can be, I think, discussed further, and they never really are. It's always like entry level things for the majority of the internet, I would say, right? That's as far as they get. But it has been insane, right? We've got sales and the people getting mad at the sale, or like the player numbers, right? The game reached 1 million, and then there's the conversation of, okay, well, because that started a whole argument in and of itself, right? Those aren't sales, and I will say, to be fair, that is actually true. That could be the subscription service of Ubisoft. It doesn't actually have to be people that bought Assassin's Creed Shadows. The game's doing pretty solid on Steam. I wouldn't say it's like a smash hit. I guess compared to the new age Assassin's Creeds, it's definitely above average, and it's above most of them, but you're not talking like what Split Fiction did. You're not talking about Kingdom Come Deliverance. So, it's settled in. It's getting really good reviews online. That's a thing that's like confusing people online, right? Where it's like people maybe expected the game to, whether it was sales or player numbers, and then also reviews. What is interesting is, those that are actually getting the game, you look at PlayStation, I think based off 6,000 scores, it's at like a 4.77. Like, that's pretty high. I think it will come down, but I don't think it's getting a 2-star rating, right? You look at Steam, I think it's sitting at about an 80%. Same thing. It might get a 70. It might get an 82, 83, right? But I don't think it's going to get a 50 or a 40. And so you have that angle of things. I see a lot of people being called names. That's a fun one. People that and by the way, I say it as a joke because I do think generally you have to laugh a lot of this stuff off, and you shouldn't take it too seriously. Otherwise, I think you become these people. But there are people that I'm actually like, I talk to on social media, or I follow, they follow me, and I've seen some like disgusting posts, or messages, DMs and stuff. People are not handling this, I think all that well. And here's the thing that's so kind of weird with me, where it's like, this is a game, and I think this video is going up after my impressions. To me, this is just like a fine game, like a solid game. It would be, I don't do scores, but like all these kind of words that I'm using, 5 or 6 out of 10, right? If 5 is your average, my score criteria might be different, than other people's or what it's built on. But like, the game isn't even atrocious to kind of warrant some of this stuff. The game also, in my opinion, is not game of the year material where it deserves some of this conversation either. It's like, this is just a game that exists that, if you want to play. And then there's also the angle of the whole, if you don't like it, don't play it thing, which, look, I do have strong opinions on certain things in life. With something like that, I kind of can see both sides. I think I kind of lie somewhere in the middle. This is shocking for those that call me a fence sitter, but honestly, when it comes to stuff like that, I think it's, again, going back to the point of not taking it too seriously, right? Like, there is an element of, why are you wasting so much energy getting mad? But then there's also, okay, well, if you really believe in the franchise, let's say, and you think that it's lost its path, you want to fix the path, what are you supposed to do? If you ignore it forever, you're not contributing, you're not going to help it kind of fix itself, right? So I kind of get both, but I think ultimately it does come down to not taking it too seriously, right? Having something to say is fine, and posting something to say is fine. And again, this goes back to, I don't think it's even like the greatest game of all time. I also don't think it's the most terrible game of all time, right? I think we're using a lot of energy for a pretty okay game in 2025. I think it's because of the name. It's because of Ubisoft. Like, that's what's giving it so much talk space, I guess, online. If this wasn't Assassin's Creed, if it was called something else and it wasn't Ubisoft, this would be, I think, just the most like and nobody would really care or take it okay, as in like take it all that seriously, right? Because again, you have some of like the worst things being said online and all that jazz. But it is a lot. I always talk about kind of the flashback type episodes I have to Hogwarts Legacy, and people say, oh, you always compare it to that, or, oh, it's never actually the same, you just bring it up. It's always kind of the feeling that I have. And what I'm talking about here is that labeling, okay? Different situations, maybe even different sides altogether, but you see it time and time again. I think it really again started to build up back in like 2023, this idea of if you do something, you are this, okay? I'm not saying it's the same people. I'm not saying obviously it's not the same game, all of this jazz, but the idea that if you do something, you are this. And I see a lot of that, and I think that's where a lot of this hate kind of stems is how can you be playing the game? How can you like the game? It's supposed to be like this, or you're supposed to be like that if you actually play it, right? This feeling of treating people lesser than if they are playing something or enjoying something that you don't. And I think that's really where it does become kind of exhausting because, and I say it a lot, like that's where I think conversation just kind of falls apart. You can have good conversation about this game. This game, as I said like 7 times, is not perfect. This is an average game in my opinion. Like it's a game that's got some good, some bad, some in between. We can still talk about like how to get it from point A to point B because it needs it. If we're going to leave it like this, I don't know what the future of Assassin's Creed will be, okay? But when everything kind of falls apart or falls into this, right, just labeling, just a lot of dismissal, right? Just dismissing anything. That's where I think everything kind of falls apart. And that's what you're seeing a lot of it here. I think you're having people obviously go way, way too far with, okay, well, these are not like legit criticisms. I've seen people, obviously, or maybe you guys have too, the idea of the end credits, right, being 2 hours long. And, you know, if they're trying to say, like, do we need 3,000 people to make a game like this? Okay, then that's actually a fair point. I don't know if that's the point they're trying to make, and I don't really think we're getting to that point because you just kind of have the two sides. You have people saying, oh, look, it's a 2-hour-long end credit scene. And then you have people saying, can you believe that people are complaining about a 2-hour-long credit scene? Can we talk about, like, is there actually anything to discuss there, or are we just, like, throwing things against a wall? Oftentimes on social media, I think we're just throwing things against the wall. When in reality, okay, we can bring it up. Like, I think there is something actually to be said about whatever you feel about Assassin's Creed. Do you need that many thousands of people to work on a game to get this kind of game product? I think the answer, by the way, is just no. I think you do not need this many people to make this game. So, you know, that's a real conversation of, you know, just where the industry has been and is continuing to go. Can we talk about that? But again, things don't really go in that direction. It's okay, well, we complained about that. Let's complain about the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Obviously, you're having like the romance stuff that people are getting extremely mad about, which, you know, is always something, I guess, that's kind of interesting because for this one, in the same way, I guess, as Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, look, is there an argument to be made about, like, why is it there in the first place? I guess you can go down that road, but what it ultimately, at least it starts on social media, is, oh, look, the game lets you do this, right? And I guess that's implying that I guess the entire thing is an issue, but also you have to do certain things to get to that point. And I said the same thing for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Like, if you don't like those scenes, those are they're optional. Now, again, like, they're in the game, so if you want to go down that path, but like for this, say specifically Assassin's Creed, you have to make decisions. Like, this doesn't just pop up on you. In fact, and I'm playing it this way, if you do the canon mode, which eliminates choices and plays it the canon mode that they want it to go, right? If they were telling the story from beginning to end without our feedback, this is the story they would tell. There are no romances in that option, in that path. So, and that's the way I chose to do it. And I think that's honestly the best way. That would really actually avoid all of this conversation. But no, I mean, that's the path that seemingly maybe they want you to go down. Yeah, you might not like it, but like you had to have picked, say, like 4 or 5 times to do a certain thing in order to get there. It doesn't just spring up on you. In the same way, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, that cutscene doesn't just happen, right? Like you have to actually want to do it. So these people complaining that it's happening, well, you wanted it to get that way. I don't know. Maybe they're just proving a point that it exists in the game in the first place. But like I said, just pretty much anything is being thrown against the wall. And I think hopefully there are legitimate criticisms of this game. I think I've brought up legitimate, problems in my own, impressions video. But, as I think a lot of us expect, or at least as I expected, the whole thing's just a mess because you don't really get anywhere with a game of this status. Again, Assassin's Creed, big name, Ubisoft, big name. game. Big game. It is a big game. Like, no matter what ends up doing player numbers, it's a big game. You're never really, for games like this, these kind of deeper conversations, you might as well just throw that idea out because you'd never really get there. If it's a smaller game, if this kind of fighting, online doesn't happen around it, I think it's easier to kind of discuss it and to kind of figure out what went right, what went wrong, have legitimate conversations. For a game that's so big and so part of just like this gaming industry machine, which Assassin's Creed really does feel like a gaming machine type game, right? It's got a lot of like checklisty type thing. I mean checklisty from like, it's got that big bloated open world still. I think it's done a better job than some of the other ones, but it's still got certain elements of like, yep, this is still generally a AAA game of like modern day. Like, it's got a lot of, when a game does that, you're just not really going to get anywhere. I think with like legitimate conversation. And that's what we're seeing, along with a lot of hate, along with a lot of labeling and a lot of other bad stuff that again just brings the whole thing down and stops real conversation. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure as always you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.